Is this thing working? Are we live? It looks like we're live. What's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you are watching this. Welcome to Two Wheel Tuesdays, where it is absolutely freezing outside, snowing, sleeting, and the like. So motorcycle stuff is completely out of the question. Aside from chatting about it, I'm not going to be doing much else. Got the bikes brought in right over here over at the shop. So with that, I'm going to talk about basically a couple of ride and review updates. And one big one is that the R9 from Yamaha, much anticipated super middleweight motorcycle, got all the love, all the press, all the big huggies and feels at EICMA, everything else you could think of. Well, yeah, that bike. Yeah, it's been delayed. It looks like some dealers may not even get motorcycles until the end of the second quarter in 2025, certainly looking poorly for the first two quarters at least. So there is that to chat about. If it's your first time hanging out, if you like hearing about motorcycle stuff or basically just need a background noise generator, that's what my channel's for. So hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, means a ton to me and the channel. And so yeah, let's get her kicked off. So the Yamaha R9, as much as it pains me to say, that thing is going to be delayed for a while. And that does kind of spell a little bit of a problem for that segment in general. Matter of fact, it might be one of the biggest problems that it could possibly have. With the significantly more expensive RCR, which is from KTM, the 990 Duke engine powered fully faired hot rod, with that motorcycle checking in at quite a bit more money, presumably, and the redesigned and reconfigured Panigale V2 with very little in common with its outgoing predecessor, that bike being significantly more expensive and no other real player to talk about, save for maybe the GSXR 750, which looks like it kind of fell back into fashion. Yeah, the R9 isn't going to make it. And it kind of makes me wonder a little bit. I know that there are some dealerships that have been able to get their hands on one, but nobody has seemed to have ridden one yet. There are no reviews, and there's nothing online that has said any kind of like it's coming soon type of a thing. There's no preview or anything like that for what to expect with this bike. And so, look, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory. The internal memo was showing that it was supply chain issues, as typical as that may be. And again, motorcycles have started showing up to dealerships, but with a supply chain issue claim, I kind of wonder a little bit here. Is this, or could this be an opportunity for Yamaha to retool a little bit? The thing is that you've got to, let me see, how do I put this? You've got to be realistic when it comes to this segment. The Yamaha R9, although it seems to be the one that's getting the most pub, is shaping up to be the least exciting motorcycle in this class. The reason why I say that is because of the engine. And so far as many can tell that have been able to dive into this motorcycle a little bit deeper, the operating system is practically identical to the outgoing MT-09. So if that's the case, then you're not going to see a bump in power. You're not going to see really anything different from the MT-09 or the XSR 900 or the XSR 900 GP, a motorcycle we desperately need here in the States. But I digress. You're not going to see any real performance variant from one to the next to the next. As a matter of fact, with no extra power in the R9 being limited to just shy of 120 horsepower, I would venture, and that's at the flywheel, guys. At the rear tire, you're looking at more like 105 to maybe 107 on a just sweetheart of a dyno. Yeah, see, the problem with that kind of power is that it puts it at the very bottom of the exact same class of motorcycle that it is looking to begin or to lead, if you will. And so I kind of wouldn't be surprised if after Q2 that maybe we see a difference in the R9. I would like to see a bump in power to at least 100 or 135 horsepower at the flywheel. If nothing else, at the bare minimum, make it 130 horsepower at the flywheel and make it fit the class of super sport, which is the class it races in, and the highest rated power for those bikes is 130. It's why you see the RCR from KTM checking in at 128, the V2 Panigale at like 126 or 128. Again, with this bike being just shy of 10 horsepower down, in this world, that makes a big difference. Being just shy of 10 horsepower down, you might as well call it as being 10% down on power. And, you know, some guys will say, oh, I can ride around that. Yeah, maybe. But the casual rider, the guy that's just going out to have a good time with this bike, yeah, he's going to be looking for the power up top that the CP3 just simply does not provide. Albeit in a very sleek package and in a bike that looks as good as it does, it just seems like it deserves better. True of the XSR 900 GP. Is there a theme going on here? I swear, it's like a drinking game every time I mention that bike. Oh, and the other motorcycle that I need, homework assignment for you. You have got to go to Honda Japan's website and look at the Cafe Racer version of the Rebel 1100. Now, I say it like that. It's its own bike, but it utilizes that same Africa Twin derived parallel twin that the Rebel 1100 uses. And holy crap, is this bike good looking. Like, for me, the Cafe thing, I get it. For some, it's cool. For some, it's not. I love the styling though, but if you saw this motorcycle, I can't remember what it's called. I'll have to look it up while I'm talking to you guys about it, because this bike, I am not kidding. Hold on, let me pull that up. Unfortunately, I don't have the screen share here. Go Honda Motorcycles Japan. Yeah, it looks like I've already pulled this thing up. Oh my goodness. Let me pull this bike up, man. Again, this is the homework assignment for y'all. If this is just absolute motorcycle, and it drives me nuts. Hang on. Oh, and I had somebody go, oh, hey man, listen, while I'm looking this up, a lot of what I'll look up is on Honda Japan. Anyway, somebody was saying, hey, the 2024 bike that you rode, you said was a 25, the new colors or this, that, or whatever. I'm looking at this thing. Japan's bike is still red. So whatever. Anyway, it's the Honda Hawk 11. The fact with this bike, the fact that this bike is not offered in the United States is flat out criminal. In fact, I need to save this bike. I'll put it to you like this: as good looking, and I'm just gonna say it, as good looking as the Kawasaki Z900 RS Cafe was, and I still think that's one of the all-time best looking retro styled bikes, this is not a retro Cafe. The Hawk 11 is a modern take, a modern twist on that motorcycle. And I'm telling you, standard transmission with this thing, with that, if they put the 100, how much horsepower is in this thing? Hawk 11 horsepower. Let's see how much horsepower this thing is making. Hawk 11 horsepower and torque. Let's see what this thing is going to pull up here. Specs and features in Japan on Moto Deal. Let's see what they have to say. God, it's such a pretty bike. And it's setting it. Oh my. Okay, guys, it's using, son of a bit. Okay, it's using the actual Africa Twin 1100 at 100 horsepower and 104 newton meters of torque, which is about 78 pound-feet of torque. Oof. I'm sorry, guys, but if this bike ever came to the States, something would have to go to get it. I get that. I understand that completely, but I would have to add this to the fleet. Yeah, 100 horsepower, about 75, 78 pound-feet of torque. And here's the thing. It's a little bit on the heavy side, 214 kilograms, but with a different can, with some different exhaust, a little bit of weight savings. You know, who cares? It's so good looking. Just ride it. It's a motorcycle. It's got the chops to do long distance as a sport touring bike. It's just nobody's going to look better than you when you show up. So anyway, I'm just going to leave that right there. And saying, yeah, it's been out since 22. You know, dude, I tell you what, I'm having a difficult time living with the fact that we don't have that or the XSR 900 GP. And the twist to the XSR 900 GP is that if you want to build one, if you want to actually put one together, the cost on the fairings and everything else is astronomical. So trying to get, even to do a conversion on an XSR 900 to GP is pretty pricey. But let me check in with you guys real quick. This is a live show. Skids has got the ball guy with the flex. I'm wearing full gear. It is still like snow everywhere. We got just shy of 6 inches of snow here today. So yeah, everything's kind of locked in. We're locked in for the next couple of days. John saying I need to grab the Rocket 3. That may be coming this spring. Saying Skid saying JTG still cracks me up. This Rocket 3 is a tough bike. Same displacement as my Mazda. Yeah. Fun bike. From everybody that's ridden one likes it. There's a GT up at Triumph Houston that I would love to get my hands on. Skid saying KTM is in serious trouble. That new bike may never come to pass. Man, it's a complete deal. I know that EICMA, they debuted it at EICMA and it was ready to go. I would hate to see all that R&D go to waste. Although the production, I think, on that bike is okay, but they are not racing. I know that. Sam, that's an interesting choice for, I used to have a snapper lawnmower. It's good stuff. Yeah. Honda's Cafe Race of the Hawk 11. Why is that bike not in the States, man? There's several motorcycles that I know that would just absolutely crush it here in the States. The Hawk from Honda. Let's just talk about Honda for a second. The Honda Hawk 11, how that bike isn't here now blows my mind. The other bike from Honda there's two bikes from Honda. It looks like we might not be getting the Hornet 1000. Hold on, let me see if that's still a thing. If the Hornet is not coming to the States. I know the 750 is not, and that's a real problem for me because that is, Cycle World has got it, but I don't know if they don't even know if it's coming to the States. And here's the thing. It says it hasn't been announced for the US market yet. Honda has finally released the full details of the CB1000 Hornet in Europe. Guys, if you're not familiar with this bike, as far as sport naked motorcycles go, it's taken the top. Look, there are high sport naked bikes. Those motorcycles are kind of lost on me a little bit because although the riding position may be more comfortable, at least from a technical standpoint, for me, it's really not in a way. I can tell you that if I go from riding my GSXR 1000 to just sitting on my old Katana, the old Katana feels like I'm sitting on a horse. And I mean, I'm very upright on that bike. And I've still got access to that bike unfettered. I mean, I could take that bike whenever I want out for a ride, and I just choose not to. The way that I'm put together, I prefer the sport bike riding position, but you can change all that. I guess the point that I'm getting to though, is if you're into unfaired hot rods and you want something that is going to absolutely rip, and you're not planning on making a lot of runs above, say, 120 or 130 at the most, 135 miles an hour. This Honda Hornet would be absolutely ridiculous for you. You know, if you are a more, if you're more into something that's a bit more comfort faced, or if you just don't like the more committed riding style, which I totally get, up to a certain point, I prefer it. But after that point, I'm in the same boat you are. So, but yeah, that thing, what a mess. Yeah. Skid saying Hawk 11. Yes. Kills me that it's not here. How did I not know about that bike before? I tell you what, I like it enough to where I wouldn't mind trying to see if I could figure out a way to import one. It would be one of maybe 20 in the United States. Skid saying snow day. I'm east of DFW. 0 snow yesterday. Man, we got hammered yesterday or today. A whole lot. Like, it was coming down sideways. It was a legit snowstorm for a hot minute. Skid saying, I heard the other day that the SP version of the 1000 talking about the Hornet is not coming. Still up in the air if the standard Hornet comes or not. I have a, so I've been obviously working with Stub Cycles. I have been everything I can try to get in terms of information, any kind of literature, any kind of updates or anything like that on the Hornet. The right as it sits right now, the Honda rep is real tight-lipped about that bike. So, I mean, we don't have anything to look forward to when it comes to the Hornet, which is absolute malarkey. Now, that being said, it doesn't necessarily mean, and I don't know if they're available or not in Canada, but if you could maybe locate, or if they're going to be made to be available in Canada, so maybe the North American market will get it. It's just not the United States. I don't know. I am not following the logic. Why that bike is not offered here, I have no idea. It's a direct line of sight competitor to a lot of motorcycles. And anyway, the point I was getting to with the naked bikes, there's a crossover when it comes to nakeds, or really any of these bikes, if I'm being perfectly honest. And that crossover number really is 150 to 165 horsepower. Whether it's measured at the wheel or at the flywheel, take your pick. It doesn't matter. 150 to 160-ish horsepower. After that, it's all kind of lost in the wash, in my opinion. Now, you can tune these things, GSXR 1000 or some of the other bikes. You can get more power out of them. And I plan on doing that with my bike. Matter of fact, kind of a side quest here, I've got another exhaust coming for the GSXR 1000. So we'll be talking about that. Also, remind me to bring that up too if I forget along the way. A little bit of a kind of a cool custom deal that I'm trying to work out. Kyle over at M4 is helping me out with something on a decibel thing. So looking to bring kind of a unique, little bit different take on their exhaust for my bike. So that is coming, but yeah, it's, I don't know. There's some bikes that are not coming to the States that I don't understand, but from just a business point of view, like do you want to, are you allergic to money, Honda? Like, do you just hate the concept of turning a profit? Because, I mean, you got guys like me that would just go absolutely bananas, especially the Hornet 1000 and the Hornet 750. Guys, if you've, and I can say this without any trepidation in saying it, the Hornet 750 is not an MT-07 direct line of sight competitor, even though it kind of is price for price. That's GSX 8S territory. And I can tell you this, GSX 8S, GSX 8R, damn good motorcycle for the class. So I get that the Hornet is kind of where it's at. There's really not a direct line of sight competitor unless you count the MT-07, which is long in the tooth, let's be honest. But it's okay to be long in the tooth. In fact, it's a good thing in this respect. That bike's aging like wine. It's just such a good bike at the price point and at the power level. But the Hornet 750 is better in every metric, and it's better to the point where you almost have to compare it to the GSX-8S because of the power output and because of just how good that bike is. Anyway, there's a built-in like group of bikes that could all fit very well in that same stratosphere that Honda is just, for whatever reason, I cannot possibly tell you why they wouldn't bring those bikes. But the Hawk 11, holy mackerel. Sam's not liking Briggs. Man, I haven't had any luck at all with Briggs and Stratton. I've got one on the Toro, but, or no, the Toro doesn't have a Briggs. No, it is a Briggs. That one is, but the last mower, the Honda, was a turd. Man, that thing was junk. I wasted money on that thing. Skids went out saying, thank God for heated gear. Yeah, I was out after I rode, when I did the ride and review on last Tuesday, I had the Royal Enfield, the Africa Twin, and the CBR 650R. And I think you can only get them now with the E-clutch. And by the way, guys, if you have questions, like this is about any of the bikes that I've been riding, this is a great place to ask them. This is where you'll get real-time, real feedback on that. I know the ride reviews can be a little bit sunny in their disposition. And mainly because I'm just having a good time. I'm on a motorcycle. I mean, for me, that's good enough. But what I want to do is maybe give y'all a little bit more of an insight to the bikes that I rode too. So we'll be talking about those as well. So let's see, catch up with you guys, and then we will I'll get to the riding reviews. So yeah, Sam's saying he likes the Florida weather. I would like it too. Oh, Skids. Yeah, there's a guy that imports those here in my town that brings in the little Jimmies. They're cool little trucks. I drove a Samurai around for a while in high school. I love that thing. Let's see. Yeah, the Jimmy is much. It's a smaller version of the Samurai. Skid saying jump to a Transalp. Yeah, nah, I want the actual Hornet. Yeah, I had a Samurai. I actually absolutely loved that thing, but you had to almost get out and push it to go over an overpass. But there's a picture of me somewhere around here. There's a picture of me and my sister going mudding in that thing. It's real cool looking green. It's actually my uncle's Samurai. So yeah, pretty cool deal. Okay, so ride review time. All right. So of the 3 bikes that I rode on Tuesday, again, recap the Africa Twin with the DCT, which great bike. The Royal Enfield Continental GT, that bike almost came home with me. And then the 650R with the E-clutch. We'll talk about that last, where it belongs. So anyway, the Africa Twin with the DCT. Okay, so this bike is basically it's like a pickup truck. It will literally do anything that you want it to do. If you want to do off-road, it'll do off-road fine. If you want to do on-road, it'll do on-road fine. It is a solid 5 or 6 out of 10 at doing everything. That's not to say that it's a bad thing. It's just that it is not unacceptable in that it's better than average. It's just that it's that's about the most you can hope for in terms of performance, how it stacks up against like the Tiger 1200 or hell, even the Tiger 900 for that matter. The way that it stacks up against any of the other products that are out there that are in that price point, I guess is really the idea. That Tiger 900 is not, but in terms of how does it get down the road, it's okay. It's adequate. The DCT aspect of that bike is so configurable. I just left it in one mode. I didn't want to fool around with all these other crazy modes, but if you program the DCT with sport mode, with no wheelie control and a few other, like put gravel mode in to the system, which makes it a little bit more lively, that bike can be a whole lot of fun, and it would make for a killer all-weather commuter bike. Lots of ground clearance. You could easily, bust over any esplanade or whatever you wanted to with that bike. I mean, it would be, if you just want motorcycle, you want a two-wheeled conveyance that is going to be exceptional at being a two-wheeled conveyance. It will be spectacular at being okay. And I guess that's really the best way that I can put it, with its one trump card being that you can just roll into the throttle and it motors. And that's, for some people, a good thing. If you get stuck in traffic with this thing, you could just literally ride the thing like you're driving a car. And the suspension feels about like that. The intuitiveness of the transmission, it's all exceptionally familiar. So, yeah, it's almost a compliment more than anything for me to say that it's unremarkable, because it's extremely familiar. It's a ham and cheese sandwich, man. You know what's coming. I mean, the ham might be a little better, whatever the bread, but you get the idea. You didn't come into this looking for something other than what it does. But the big thing for me, though, is that it's not overwhelming. It does everything really good. And the styling of it, it's got that old school kind of Paris to Dakar kind of look to it. So I guess it gets a pass there. But for $18,000, it's tough to beat that bike, because everything else that would be in that price range is much more expensive to get the same kind of features that you get out of the Africa Twin. And I got news for you. They may be faster. They may be whatever is to you, but they won't be an Africa Twin. And dude, I got to tell you, it's like a G-Shock watch. Like every other watch might be whatever, but it ain't ever going to be a G-Shock. And when you see somebody wearing a G-Shock, it's like, man, where'd that guy get that G-Shock at? That's what's up with the Africa Twin. So when it comes to the Continental GT, the Royal Enfield, that bike is a freaking sweetheart. I mean, I got nothing bad to say about it. It got down the highway a lot cleaner than I thought that it would. When I rode that bike, I was expecting it to be kind of buffety. I was expecting it to be a little bit wheezy under throttle, especially going down the highway at highway speeds in sixth gear. I was expecting to get a handful of throttle and get rewarded with not that much. Boy, was I wrong. Okay, so I'll put it to you like this. The way that what I was expecting out of that bike was maybe a little bit more grunt than the Speed 400. And that would have been it. And if that bike would have just been that, it would have been perfect, just fine. But the Royal Enfield with the 650 air-cooled parallel twin, guys, I got to tell you, the bike had power on reserve on the highway. I was kind of surprised, even at partial throttle inputs. I found myself at one point, some stuff that was, because sometimes I'll take the bike out for a run and I'll be filming and something will happen and it'll kind of screw up the flow and I'll just basically start the video all over again. That happened a lot with the Africa Twin, by the way. There was like freaking probably seven or eight takes just to get that video done. And so by the time I was all said and done with that video, just kind of behind the scenes, I was like, get me something else to ride. Things drive me nuts. The Royal Enfield only took 2. And the rest of them, oddly enough, by just kind of fun fact, the CBR 650 took 3 to get where it needed to be. The Royal Enfield took 2. And to be honest with you, that's one of the bikes, that and the GSX-8R are the 2 that I've ridden lately that I would probably add to the stable if I had the room. But anyway, here's the point that I'm trying to get to. That bike is better than the first motorcycle that you might compare it to, which would be the Triumph Speed 400. And eerily enough, you know, they're making kind of the same horsepower with the 650, just making more torque. But man, can you feel a difference? And the point that I'm getting to is the first video I made with the Royal Enfield on the way back, when I went back to go do a new video with it, I was buzzing it pretty hard on the highway. I looked down and I was doing almost 100 miles an hour with it, and I wasn't really trying to. That, I don't know what it is with the headlight of that thing, if it blows air out of your way or whatever, but it wasn't buffeting. It wasn't doing anything. I mean, I could park that thing at 85 or 90 miles an hour and it was cool with it. So about the only thing that you might notice between the Royal Enfield and say a T100, which would be like the Bonneville 900, is that it wouldn't accelerate quite as hard as the 900. Go figure. It's a 650. Granted, it's a lot lighter by about 20 or 30 pounds at least, but that's beside the point. The T100 is a lot more expensive and doesn't offer up that old school riding experience that the Royal Enfield does. And that was the big twist for me with the Royal Enfield, was that the charm and the sounds, everything about that bike was very old school, to the point where it reminded me of bikes that I would have ridden when I was a kid. Some of these motorcycles that I used to drag bikes out of junkyards and rebuild them and ride them. In fact, one of the first bikes that I ever did that to, I gave it to my dad. It was just a absolute Frankenstein of a motorcycle. Anyway, but I had, God, what was it? It was another Yamaha. It's for some reason I was Union Cycle Salvage. Anyway, shout out. They're not there anymore, I don't think. But anyway, it would have been like any of the old, actual, honest to God, old school bikes that you would have ridden. That's what this bike rode like, but it was a lot more refined and it would carry speeds that the older bikes wouldn't. So there's that. But that bike is still for sale up at Stubbs Cycles, at least until I figure out a way or what I could get rid of to get it. But the thing is that Royal Enfield is going to be releasing a 750. And that 750 is promising to be a little bit more powerful, obviously more torque. And it's just going to be more of what the Continental GT has to offer. If you've got a Continental GT and you're into Royal Enfields, I can see maybe making a switch. But if you've already got one of those bikes, it's doing a good job for you anyway, better than I thought that it would. And again, sweet as a nut to ride, man. It's a shame that those bikes kind of get shit on a little bit, and I don't see any real good reason for it. I think it's just a lot of closed-mindedness when it comes to guys with, in the States. There's so many guys that just crap all over bikes that, man, if you just gave it a shot, you'd probably fall in love with. Some people are, I guess, scared to, venture out. Like, it's Royal Enfield. Royal Enfield's been around longer than anybody, and they've been making bikes like this their entire time of making bikes. So anyway, I'm a big fan of that thing. And then, so the last bike that I did the ride and review on, CBR 650R with the E-clutch. And if you are watching that video, that was it. You have to remember that video is probably honest to gosh, man, let me think about this. That's actually take 4. We'll go with that. It's actually take 4. It might have been, that's take 4. By the time I was done riding that bike, I had gotten really used to the clutch, and I was still screwing up grabbing that clutch. Or was it 3? That's take 3, not take 4. I should have done a 4th take on that bike is what I'm thinking maybe, because the more time I spent with it, the less I liked it. Here's the reason why. It's a really good training aid if you're just getting started. But the fact that it still has a clutch lever is a bit of a problem for me. I would have preferred if that bike just did not have a clutch at all, don't give you the option. But then if you look at it from that point of view, that would be a final destination. And that really is the DCT, right? So this bike with a clutch, it'll teach you proper clutch in release, friction zone, all of that. You can still stall the bike in that respect. But it's weird when you want it to be an automatic, but you go out and you reach for the clutch at just the right time. You can still stall it at a light. And you've got to, if you see that little light go off, the automatic light go off, if you got a stoplight, you just put it into neutral and then pop it back into gear and everything is good. But if you've accidentally grabbed the clutch, you've committed to using that clutch. So kind of a weird thing. I get it. There's some configurable aspects to all of this, but to just get onto that machine and ride it, damn, was that off-putting, man. It was weird in a lot of ways. The weirdest thing about that system, though, is if you, let's say, for example, you're sitting at a stoplight, and in the video, I even mentioned this. I slip it into neutral, put it back into automatic mode, and then pop the thing into gear. Right as you start going, when the system starts to actuate, if you can feel it do this with the clutch lever, you'll feel it disconnect, that system disconnect from the clutch lever. It goes pop, and then the clutch lever just kind of flops around there. And that can be a little bit weird. When it first did it, I thought I broke something. I went, oh crap, I just broke a brand new motorcycle. Like, how do I break a clutch? And when it first did it, I looked down because that box, where that e-clutch system is on the right-hand side on that bike. And I looked down to make sure it was still, the cable was still hooked up to the lever that is actuating it from the manual side. So yeah, anyway, that happened on the very first take. And that was one of the things that I was going, oh my God, that is so weird. So anyway, one of the weird things that happen on those types of rides. I mean, I'm dealing with brand new technology that I've never ridden before, a motorcycle that is by all accounts pretty good. But just kind of made weird with that technology. Again, great bike though. And I feel like, it's very much some of y'all are going to hate for me to say it like this, but it's very much the Triumph Daytona 660, just painted a different shade of red. When it comes to the power output, the downside to that class of bikes, and again, you cannot rope the GSX 8S or R into this because it does make less than 100 horsepower, but you'd never know that by riding it. You ride that bike and then ride the CBR 650R, and you will come away, unless you want the committed riding experience of a sport bike, take the technology part of it out. If that is what you're looking for, then the Honda offers up a better riding position in that respect, but that's it. The 8R or the 8S would run out of that bike's life. And let's say it doesn't do it on a drag strip. Whatever. You're able to rip this thing to 12,000 RPM or whatever, talking about the CBR versus the 8R, the 8S. It doesn't matter. At some point, the rideability really does suffer with that bike. And it just, the Daytona 660 and the CBR 650 were very similar in that respect. I haven't ridden the MT-07 yet, so I can't do a direct line of sight comparison, but as an update, that is the first of the next bikes that I want to ride. I need to get some time with an MT-07. I keep hearing how great that bike is. For a beginner, I keep hearing that it is, it's the best, right? But it's going to fall short of any of these other motorcycles that I've ridden in terms of power, but in terms of outright character, I'm being told it's like the best of those bikes that you can ride. And although it didn't do quite as well against the Honda and the Honda Hawk 750 and Honda Hawk, I got that bike on the mind, the Hornet 750. It's just one of those things where I just went, it didn't do as well against that bike, but I take it away from, I get it. You have to compare these bikes with something. You can't really take them as a vacuum, so to speak. But in this case, God, for as good as that bike is and as fun as I keep hearing that these MT bikes are, I've got to get some time with them. Let's see. Oh, Sam saying I came across a 1970s HD two-stroke adventure bike. Never knew they had one. The Africa Twin MSRP 14.7 or so. The Pan America from Harley Davidson's 20 grand. Yeah, 5 grand. I expect Pan America to be 21 to 24. So not as bad as I thought it would be. So let me look at something. Africa Twin, I think the bike that I rode, hang on. Let me do something here. Africa Twin DCT cost 2024. That technically, I guess, was a so 14.7. 2024 15.59. Probably get that thing for about 18 grand out the door. Depending on taxes and everything else in your area. Call it 16, tax, title, and license, probably just shy of 18 out the door, man. That is a lot of bike for that price. And I got to tell you, for that kind of money, if you go the Twin Adventure Sport, which is the bike that I rode, that's about 18,000. So, again, lots of bike for the money. I guess. But here's the thing. They're all really expensive. And so there's that. But yeah, you can get them for a lot less than the bike that I was on. That bike is, stickering in at about 18. But the Pan America from Harley Davidson, yeah, it's 20 grand, but 150 horsepower. You've got the Tiger 1200, also 150 horsepower. You can get it in the GT. That thing you can configure that in a few different ways. But yeah, so the Pan America is more, but I don't know that you get more other than just horsepower. And I think that's the one thing that if there is a drawback to that, the Africa Twin, it's a horsepower thing. It just doesn't make the power that the rest of the field does, but it's also the least expensive. And I'll argue too that I don't know that you get more for the money, but in a way you kind of do with the Africa Twin, because what it lacks in power, it more than makes up for in connectivity, rider modes, and all of that. But more to the point, I think that it's really good as usable power. And I think that if you were to take the Africa Twin away from the other bikes that are making substantially more power, if you only rode the Africa Twin, you'd never be bored with it. You'd never be upset with it. So there's that. I just like the way the thing looks, but you can't get by on looks alone. And there are some other bikes that are out there. Now, that being said, the Africa Twin checks in at 540 pounds with the DCT. The Pan America, I think, is lighter. It's about the same. Well, you can floss it about as high up as you want. No, the Pan America is actually can be quite a bit heavier. But 534 pounds is what it is claiming. Let me see something here. Let's see if it's got anything that shows the actual weight here on that Pan America. Pan America 1250. I've got to say the Pan America is a good looking bike. I like that bike a lot. I would absolutely rock one. Weight as shipped 534. Weight and running order 258 pounds. I think that's supposed to be in. They got something screwed up here. Anyway, I guess the point that I'm getting to is great bike, but I think that you've got to, for a lot of folks, it's going to be the DCT that is what's going to drag them over to the Africa Twin. You got to, let's just call it for what it is. Money for money, power for power. It doesn't really matter. When you get into that segment and oh, this is what I wanted to say about that too. Okay, so the Africa Twin is very much a pickup truck type of a bike. Any of these sport utility bikes are. In that, if it had more power, okay, but you never felt like it needed more power. And so it's, again, it's a lot like having a pickup truck or an SUV or a minivan. I hate to say it like that, but if it had more power, great, but you wouldn't really be using it. Most people really wouldn't be using it anyway, I think is how they're seeing it. And so that's why Honda just says, look, it makes 100 horsepower. It makes a gob of torque down low. That's what you're buying this bike for. It's not going to be overwhelming. And I think it's an adequate amount of power for what it is. Although a little bit more would have been better. Let's see. Let me get back to you guys. Oh, the Royal Enfield 650 has support from S&S, which is really sweet. Yes, they do. They have a big bore kit and exhaust for them. I've seen one with a 750 big bore. That sound, oh yeah. And be on the lookout. Like I say, Royal Enfield is dropping a 750 is what it looks like. So they have listened to their audience for that bike. Oh, and I heard about that where they parked the Royal Enfield Continental next to a coffee shop, asked people how much they thought the bike was. It was a lot more than what they asked for that bike. It's a great bike. It's a really nice bike. Skid saying, hit that like button. Yeah, listen, if you've lasted this long, if you like the content, hit the like, hit the subscribe, please. Helps the channel out a bunch. It helps us to work with the YouTube algorithms. You know, I never used to say like, subscribe, share, but no, it really does make a difference. It helps a ton. Doesn't cost you anything. You can always unsubscribe if you don't like it, but subscribing to the channel does help a lot. Helps the algorithm get the show out to more folks. So any help you can give me, I truly appreciate it. Let's see. Oh, Sam saying it's funny they haven't tried to make a clutchless transmission like what they have on 70cc quads and bikes. So a lot of those are, it's just a centrifugal clutch. I've got one in the four-wheeler, which wouldn't start today. So one of the bummers about today is I really wanted to get the four-wheeler running, which I haven't done in a while, and it does need a new carburetor, but I wanted to get it running because I wanted to go out and do dumb stuff in the snow with it. So we'll see. I'll see what I can do by getting that thing running tomorrow. Anyway, Hard Rock is in saying, good evening from Vermont. Good evening. Hard Rock, yeah, I got a ton of snow today. We got a lot of snow. More than I thought we were going to get, too. I think more than anybody thought we were going to get, from being honest. But yeah, no, those bikes were pretty good. Now, bikes that are up. Oh, so let me get back to the R9, the whole topic of the show. What do y'all think about that bike? I mean, for me, it's a little bit off-putting in a way because that market segment is nothing but a compromise. I understand it though completely. And I understand the allure of having about 120 horsepower, you know, and having, you know, more of a, you can call it user-friendly power delivery. I get it. 100% understand it. But here's the thing. it's going to end up getting compared to the GSXR 750. And that is a real problem for that bike, but more to the point, and for that segment, the super middleweights, these 900-ish cc, 10,000-ish RPM engines. Just think of them like that. Doesn't matter, 2, 4, 6, 8 cylinder, doesn't matter. 900 cc's, roughly 10,000 RPM. This is the kind of power you're going to get at that RPM and power. 120 to 130 horsepower. 64 to 68 pound-feet of torque. Okay, I have that motorcycle already. It's sitting right there. By the way, if you're cold, they're cold, bring them inside. And that's with my Daytona. It's rated at 130 horsepower. That's optimistic. It's really more like 120. I think that bike put down 120 something to the rear tire a long time ago. But the point that I'm getting to is this. That bike is not a bunch of compromises. That motorcycle was built to a purpose. These modern bikes aren't. They're built to a compromise, and they're supposed to bridge the gap between leader class and 600cc sport bikes. Super sport bikes, I should be more precise with that. The problem is that the 600cc bikes with the gearing that they have are punchy to ride, just like the GSXR bikes that I rode. Very similar. The bigger bike is a little punchier, but I think you understand where I'm going with this. At the price point that they're trying to get for the bikes that are outside of that R9 price point of $12,500, everything else is a lot more expensive. And I don't know why you would buy one over a leader class bike, because the pricing starts to look eerily similar at that point. You're just compromising outright power for some available torque at partial throttle over a 600. That's, I mean, come on, dude. That's like I'm trying to explain the joke at this point. That's the part that kind of stings me a little bit, is I feel like I'm trying to explain something here, like why it would be a good idea to do this. I understand, though, that the bike's going to be really good and they're lightweight. So at least they've got that going for them. They're about 15 or 20 pounds lighter than the thousands that you would compare them to. So that's a good thing. And they have a shorter wheelbase, which is also a good thing. But there's a bike that just out of nowhere came back into fashion, which has the torque within 5 foot-pounds, identical to these 900s. And, oh yeah, it's got about 140 horsepower, not 120 or 130. And it's been out since, well, it was the first one, and that's the GSXR 750. Oh, crap. See, this is the problem. The GSXR 750 finding itself back in fashion in this respect, it won't get the comparisons because the journos will say, yeah, but it's got to be neutered to compete in super sport, and these other bikes don't. Okay, maybe that's the case. And you can also make the argument that the GSXR 750 and its 600cc sibling just don't have the technology suite that these other bikes do, and the price point, bike for bike, it's like it compares, but it doesn't. Yeah, I guess you could do that if you're trying to keep the Gixxers out of the conversation. It's like saying, yeah, look, I know if I fought this guy, I would get my ass kicked, but that guy has been fighting for a long time. I mean, if I'd been fighting for a long time and I had the experience, I would probably be just as good. But it's like, no, dude, you get your experience in the ring, bro. And so it's like you don't want to spar with the guy, but you want to be where the guy is at. And that's where these upper middle class or middleweight bikes, these 900cc bikes are falling. And it's just, you've got the ultimate middleweight GSXR 750 just sitting there waiting. And you've got a darling right underneath it at GSXR 600, which, by the way, fun fact on that, because of gearing, the GSXR 600 is not that far removed from the GSXR 750 until you get to like the top of 4th or 5th gear. So you test ride a GSXR 600 and you don't buzz that thing up beyond, say, maybe 80 or 90 miles an hour, it's basically the same as a Gixxer 750 at that point, really, honestly. I mean, without trying to split hairs, okay? I think you understand where I'm going with this. And I know that because my track bike was a GSXR 750. But anyway, you get into this and it's like, ah, shit. Okay, so what do you go with? I mean, I understand the allure of the R9, but here's the problem. It's not going to show up for 6 months now. KTM, Lord only knows what that thing's going to fall in line of when it comes to price. And then you've got the, well, I mean, come on, the Panigale V2. We already know that bike's going to be astronomically expensive. So you almost can't even count the Panigale and the RCR because it hasn't started selling yet. And you don't have any, nobody's compared that bike to anything yet. I don't know. I guess we're going to have to wait till these things land and people start throwing legs over them. And, you know, you start to park GSXR 750s next to them and go, okay, well, the outgoing V2 Panigale would walk away from a GSXR 750 in a straight line race. Yeah, you would expect it to. It's got 15 more horsepower and it's 150 cc's larger. I mean, come on. Yeah, it had better. Actually, it's 200 cc's larger. So yeah, it had better run away from a GSXR 1000 regardless of the cylinder count. I get that, but it's a Panigale, guys. And so for the money, yeah, you don't let the Gixxer get around you. But this new bike doesn't have that kind of power. And plus the cost difference is just in a completely different league. So I think you understand where I'm going with this. But let me get back into you guys real quick, and then we are going to be wrapping this up. And yeah, Skids, you're exactly right. The new sport bike is nothing more than a fully fared naked, and that is a bit of a... Okay, so the R9 does have a dedicatedly different chassis, but it's got the Sport Naked's engine. So it's got some sport bike DNA, but a lot of naked motorcycle DNA to go along with it. The RCR is a Duke 990 with a different fairing and maybe some different, you know, handlebar. You get the idea. The V2 Panigale is an all new bike. And by all accounts, even with the smaller, lower output engine, it is a rocket with it being so much lighter than the outgoing bike. But again, that price and the new V2 Panigale's engine is going to be used in everything for the multi-strata to anything else that was going to fit within a power need of about 120 horsepower. It's going to get that engine. So economies of scale, right? That's their new corporate V2. Not bad. Pretty cool. But again, it is what it is. But, you know, damn the sound coming out of that thing, right? But I guess for me, Kawasaki needs to step it up. Kawasaki needs the Z900 with a fairing and a set of clip-ons. That bike would just slide right into that category with no issues at all. And that is a pretty nasty bike, all things considered. It goes up against the XSR 900, I guess, in a way. So, or the MT-09, I should say, in a way. So there's that. But anyway, you get the idea. We've got bikes that are in that category that could do really well. I'm having a hard time warming up to them. If I ever get a chance to ride one, I will be elated, to do so. And it's probably a great motorcycle. I can't really talk down about it, but again, to say that it's something that is going to be exciting. Look, if I got to wait 6 months to ride a 117 horsepower motorcycle, okay. I'm not going to be all that worked up. Let's see. Oh, Hard Rock saying, I love super bikes, but I seem to be loving Triumph Bobbers. Great bike. Great bike all the way around. And there's the new TR or whatever it is from Triumph now that's got clip-ons. It's the Hot Rod Bobber. It's a killer bike. Limited production thing. But yeah, the bobber is great. You just got to test fit one. I would say that the bobber, if you were to convert it with Speedmaster forward controls, would be a really good bike. That's the only way I would take a bobber personally. But I know that guys love it with the mid controls, and they run pretty good too once you throw a tune at them. Let's see. This kid's saying, kind of amazing that the Triumph Bobber is only $2,000 higher than a Honda Fury. Both great bikes, but that Triumph has it covered in looks. Yeah, that the Fury is awesome if you're into like early 2000s chopper look. Hard Rock saying it's ridiculously expensive. Yeah, that's one of the downsides to Triumph. It's, well, I mean, you get what you pay for. In a way, that's a bit of a played out cliche though, but it's a great bike nonetheless. I mean, you can't take anything away from it. And I'm a big Triumph fan. Y'all know that about me. So, oh, Skids, yeah, the new Street Fighter V2 is going to have the new engine. Yes. Oh, Skids hanging out with Hard Rock, loving the look. Yep. If I can get my hands on one of those bikes, I will, but it's going to be kind of tough. But yeah, I'd love to get my hands on the new V2 Panigale. That bike to me, of the super sport middleweights, whatever, super middleweight bikes, that's the one that kind of is the one that makes the most sense to me, because it's the lightest weight, it's the most committed, and it's already at the top. It's already winning all of the races that the outgoing V2 Panigale is already sitting at the top of the podium when it comes to outright race wins in super sport. It's just that all of those bikes, most of those bikes have to be neutered. And that's the thing that's keeping a lot of people, like, it's just weird. Like, it's hard to wrap your head around that type of racing where it's what's the word I'm looking for? Like you're basically you're just detuning these things to be able to be competitive altogether, like to try to find parity. But I just not a fan of that. It's cool that you get to see all these different bikes. It's the most diverse motorcycle lineup in racing for sure. But I don't know, man. I'm still trying to figure that one out. Yeah, the V2 is a good looking bike. It's scary. Yeah. Skids had did test a 22 V2. I could barely get out of second in downtown Dallas. I bet. Skids, I might take you up on that. I love Ducatis, man. I've always been a big fan of Ducati in general. They always did motorcycle exceptionally well. That's one of the good things about Ducati, is that Ducati is really good at making Ducati motorcycles. They're uniquely their own, and it's very much the same as, Royal Enfield is really good at making Royal Enfield motorcycles. You would never want them to try to make something else, like some water-cooled super bike by Royal Enfield. It'd be like, stay in your lane, bro. That's kind of where I go with Ducati. That's why some of Ducati's bikes, though, they're sport bikes. I get the Street Fighters. I get some of them. Like the Diavel, I'm like, I get it, but Ducati does a great job of making, hot rod bikes with a certain style that you just cannot deny. And that's the cool thing. I love that they make, like, they will put styling as, like, how do we make this thing look the part? That's the cool thing. But the only bike they didn't do that with was the Tri 9. And it's still one of my favorite bikes ever. Hard Rock say, that's why I play Gibson guitars. Yeah. They just work. Um, the old air cooled ducks are really good. The old 900 Super Sport, dude, that's a killer bike. But yeah, all good stuff, man. Like I say, I'm a big fan of those bikes, and we'll see if I ever get my hands on one. But until then, I'll let you know what I am going to discover over at Stubbs. There's the MT-07, which I definitely want to try out. And then I might try to grab one of the Indians that are in inventory. I would like to get some time with one of those bikes. And aside from that, maybe the Fury. I just want to try the Fury out because so many people hate on it. And for me, you cannot hate on a Fury for being better at being what it is than any other motorcycle that is made today. Like a custom chopper style bike like that, nobody makes. You know, you've got the Breakout by Harley Davidson. That's it. Like you can talk about the the 109, which is a bike, eerily enough, I can't ride because I don't fit. I'm not big enough to ride that bike. But if I were, it'd be a great bike to have. But the Fury, it actually fits well. It's a comfortable bike. It looks really good. I mean, gee, I guess if you own one, you can't join a club or something. Dude, that bike is a kick-ass bike to ride, I'm sure. So I can't wait to give it a go. And like I say, check out Stubbs inventory. If you see a bike that you want me to ride, let me know in the live show, man. I'll have them get it ready. We'll take it for a spin. But it is definitely going to have to warm up because it is absolutely nasty. It's slushy outside, lots of snow. But anyway, with that, guys, if you've made it this far, thanks for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. We've gone over a little over an hour on this one. Again, my channel is really nothing more than a background noise generator. I think most of the guys that have me on have way other things that they're working on. They're just using, they want background noise that has something to do with bikes or cars or something like that. So this is what we do on the live show, though. Try to get as much interaction as I can with you guys, let you know on what I'm working on, what projects are coming up, and, just my own take on, some behind the curtains. If I'm doing ride reviews, stuff like that, there's sometimes some fun stuff that happens. And like I say, that there were some, intrusive thoughts that took over on the GSXR 600 video that I couldn't put in the video. But yeah, when I'm getting onto the freeway, there's a part where I'm getting onto the freeway, and I'll typically do a little bit of a run up getting onto the freeway, just let it buzz through the gears. And I went first, second, third, and then grabbed the clutch. It was like instinct, and carried the front tire. And it's like, can't be doing wheelies on bikes that I don't own. So anyway, not that I'm even good at it. It's just some of these bikes do it kind of on their own. You're just piloting the thing. So anyway, but yeah, there's always some kind of behind the curtain type stuff that goes on with some of the ride-alongs. So the ride-along and review. But with that, guys, anyway, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, share, you know the deal. And get out there and do something cool for somebody, because chances are they need it way more than you know. With that, that's a wrap. Y'all have a great one. Take care, guys.